Welcome to the second in our study of cities of the Bible. Again, just a reminder that we have concluded our studies on women of the Bible. I think there was 41 in total, so they're all on the playlist on our YouTube channel. And now we're moving on to, again, a very similar format, but looking at cities of the Bible. Last week we looked at Jericho, and today we're looking at two cities, Shiloh and Shechem. Shiloh was a small Old Testament village about 20 miles north of Jerusalem. It was important because it served as the religious center for the Hebrew people during the period of the Judges, before the kingdom was united under the leadership of David. Numerous references are made to Shiloh during this period as the city where the house of God was located. Judges chapter 18 and verse 31. These references are probably to the tabernacle with its Ark of the Testimony, or perhaps a permanent building that housed the tabernacle, because the temple was not constructed until about 960 BC, during Solomon's time. Hannah prayed for a son at Shiloh. God granted this request by sending Samuel. During his boyhood, Samuel worked with the high priest Eli at Shiloh. One of the most beautiful stories of the Old Testament is about Samuel's response to the voice of the Lord. Thinking his master Eli was calling him, he awakened the high priest to find out what the high priest wanted. Finally, it dawned on both that God was calling Samuel in a unique revelation of his will for the boy. Samuel's response to God's next call was, "Speak, Lord, for thy servant is listening." 1 Samuel chapter 3 and verses 1 to 10. I wonder how often I'm willing to simply listen to God and listen to his word through the Bible, rather than trying to bring to it all of my own interpretations or my own wants and feelings. Rather simply to say, "Speak, Lord, I'm listening," of course, to the scriptures. Samuel eventually succeeded Eli. The tabernacle was located in Shiloh during Samuel's early years as priest. 1 Samuel chapter 1 and verse 9, 1 Samuel chapter 4 and verses 3 and 4. However, during a battle with the Philistines, the Ark of the Testimony was captured by Israel's enemies because God had forsaken Shiloh as the center of worship. Psalm chapter 78 and verse 60. When the ark was returned to Israel by the Philistines, it was not placed at Shiloh. 2 Samuel chapter 6 and verses 2 to 17. It was lodged instead at Kiriath Jearim. 1 Chronicles 3 and verses 13 and 14. After the ark was moved to another city, Shiloh gradually lost its importance. This loss was made complete when Jerusalem was established as capital of the kingdom in David's time. In the days of the prophet Jeremiah, Shiloh was in ruin. Jeremiah 7, 12 and 14. It became an inhabited town again in the days of the Greeks and the Romans, several centuries later. The second city we're looking at is Shechem. Shechem was a fortified city on the edge of a fertile plain in central Palestine, where main highways and trade routes converged. Associated particularly with Abraham, Jacob, and Joseph, Shechem was a place where many altars for worship of the one true God were erected. When Abraham entered Canaan about 2000 BC, he stopped in Shechem. God appeared to him at Shechem and promised to give the land of Canaan to his descendants. Genesis 12 and verses 6 and 7. In response, Abraham built an altar to the Lord. Upon his return to Shechem many years later, Abraham's grandson Jacob also built an altar. Genesis 33 and verses 18 to 20. John chapter 4 and verse 12 says that he dug a deep well there. Joseph visited his brothers when they were tending their father's herds at Shechem. Genesis 37 and verse 12. Joseph's body was taken from Egypt during the Exodus and buried at Shechem. Joshua 24 and verse 32. After Joshua led the Israelites to victory in Canaan, an altar was built at Shechem. Its construction was accompanied by a covenant renewal ceremony in which offerings were given and the law was read. Joshua chapter 8 and verses 30 to 35. Shechem's location between barren Mount Ebal and fertile Mount Gerizim gave the ceremony symbolic meaning. The advantages of keeping the covenant were proclaimed from Gerizim, while the curses for breaking it were proclaimed from Ebal. For a short time after the northern kingdom was founded, Shechem served as the capital city of this nation before Samaria was built and designated as the capital city. 1 Kings chapter 12 and verse 25. Some scholars identify the New Testament town Sychar in John chapter 4 and verse 5 with Shechem. If this is correct, then this is where Jesus spoke with the Samaritan woman at Jacob's well. He promised her living water that would become a well of water springing up to eternal life. John chapter 4 and verse 14. Thanks very much.